President Donald Trump said Monday that if he had been around at the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, that he believes that he would have rushed in to confront the shooter even though he didn't have a weapon. He said, of course, that you can't know for sure until you're tested, but that he believes firmly that he would do that. Which made me think, so what presidents seem most likely to run into gunfire that way, and what presidents seem least likely to do that? So I put together a list. I have 5 presidents who I think would be willing to run into gunfire, and 4 who I think are not so likely to do that. The first one, and I think this is kind of the no-brainer, and this is Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is our most physically courageous president ever, starting from his childhood, in which he refused to clean the boots of a British soldier and was hit by a sword, up until the time that he actually confronted someone in a duel, and the guy was a better marksman than him. So Jackson's strategy was actually to stand there and take the first shot, hoping that it would be rushed, and then he would get the second shot. Well, it turns out the guy still was a pretty good marksman, and he hit Jackson right in the chest, and it was a bullet that would remain in Jackson for the rest of his life. But Jackson was able to remain standing and return the shot and kill his opponent. My second choice is Theodore Roosevelt, who is a lot like Jackson in that here's a guy that just craved the action. So when the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898, he resigned as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, a very secure position, and created his own cavalry, and then somehow worked his way to get over to Cuba, and where this group that was called the Rough Riders, he led them on a charge up a hill in a famous battle of that war. The next one on my list is John Kennedy, who, despite having a back injury, actually enlisted in the Navy after World War II began, and became a skipper on a patrol torpedo boat, a PT boat. And while they were out on patrol, the boat was hit by a Japanese destroyer and split in 2. And Kennedy was able to get all of his men, led them on a 3-mile swim to an island where they were able to survive, including he dragged one of them, a badly burned member of the crew, with a strap in his teeth as he swam across, even though he also had been injured again. My next is George Washington, who, maybe not surprisingly is the father of our country, but Washington probably served in the military longer than any other of our elected officials, especially during the Revolutionary War, in which he kept the army together through his force of will and character when they were facing starvation at Valley Forge, when they were facing superior forces, and the idea that at any moment he could be caught and tried for treason. The next one might be a little surprise, and that's George H.W. Bush. And while a lot of people remember him as being referred to as the wimp, actually, right after World War II, after Pearl Harbor, just as he was turning 18, he enlisted in the Navy and quickly got commissioned as a naval aviator, the youngest ever in American history. And he went on to fly 58 missions during World War II, including one in which his plane took some flak, the engine got knocked out, a fire started on board, and yet Bush remained on course, dropped his bombs over the target, and then went back out to sea, where he and another colleague parachuted out. Now, the other colleague's parachute didn't open, and he perished, but Bush remained in a little raft for several hours until he was rescued, and eventually returned to flying again. The presidents, I think, least likely to confront a gunman in this kind of situation, I start out with 3: Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump. And I do that all because those 3 actively took steps to avoid service in the Vietnam War. So I'm going to kind of say that if you take those steps to avoid war, you're probably not going to run toward gunfire. And my 4th and final president, and this may not be completely fair, and this is William Howard Taft. While he was in the presidency, he was 5 feet 11 inches and weighed 340 pounds. And in modern times, this is a BMI of 47.4. Anything over 30 is obese. So I'm just going to say that William Howard Taft, no matter how well-intentioned he was and how much he wanted to run to gunfire, he wasn't going to run. This is Tim Morris, the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com. Thanks for watching.